Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Travel in Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course with me, Dan Blanchard. Today I'm in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Capitol on Jenkins Hill. Some of you better know it as Capitol Hill. This is where Congress meets, right? This is the people's house. This is Congress. So let me bring you back to a little history on this. You have the Residence Act of 1790, where they decide they're going to move the capital out of New York City and they're going to put it here in Washington, D.C. And they're going to put it in Philly for 10 years while they build up the Washington, D.C. swampland, Potomac River area, right? Potomac area, right? Now, George Washington's going to select the site. He's never going to get to live here or be president here. He's going to be a president in New York and Philly, all right? And this was made for a deal. Hamilton wanted the war debts forgiven from all the states. A lot of the southern states had already paid their debts, their war debts, and didn't want them forgiven. A lot of the northern states still had war debts that Hamilton wanted to be forgiven, so we could have a nice, strong country. The compromise was move the capital out of New York to Philly for 10 years under the Residence Act of 1790 while we build up Washington, D.C. over here, and this is what they did. All right. Now, today is a rainstorm here, pretty bad rainstorm. So I'm a little bit off in the distance, but you can see the big dome there. Now that big dome, right, that is a total representation of the United States of democracy. It's the United States linked antiquity to Greece and Rome's democracy. And George Washington, he laid the cornerstone for the Capitol building during a Freemason ceremony. Now, don't go crazy on conspiracy theories. All right, the Freemasons pretty much laid the cornerstones for everything here. It was like a ritual that just was how it went, right? And that cornerstone was laid. Now, eventually, that cornerstone is going to be lost, right? And that's another mystery along, with the White House's cornerstone missing. Well, we'll get to that maybe later. All right. So, if you could see. Right there, the Capitol building, that's a neoclassic design. It's got a soaring center dome with symmetrical wings, which is the Senate and the House of Representatives collectively known together as Congress, right? Or on the wings, the symmetrical wings of that soaring dome. Now, the question everybody asked was, hey, did the slaves build that? And the answer is, well, yeah, the slaves kind of did build that because the slaves kind of built like or had a hand in building almost everything in Washington, D.C. Now, this was the workaround. The government did not buy and own slaves. They rented them from their slave masters. That was how they got the slave labor without buying or owning slaves. It was the workaround. And, you could say that was like really bad, but the government had a problem. They were trying to build this, and there was very few skilled white craftsmen around. They had some Scottish stonemasons here that were working with the slaves, and they were working also with the freedmen. All right, they were working with them. So, the government, they wanted this thing to be done quickly. One of the answers was to go to the slaves, right? But you can't go to the slaves because you can't have the government buying and owning slaves, right? So they rented them. Kind of a workaround. A lot of us are going to have a problem with that, I'm sure. But that's the history of it, okay? Now, eventually, the War of 1812 comes. 1814 comes and the British burns Washington, D.C. down. Capitol building, all that stuff's going to be burnt down. White House, a whole bunch of stuff, right? And there were some people that were actually thinking maybe it's a good thing because this place is just a swamp. It's like a shanty town, just gambling here, drinking here, prostitution here, muddy roads. Everything is just a mess here. Maybe we should put the Capitol somewhere else, right? But they were like, nope. Not doing it. They restored the building, restored D.C. They restored this building within 5 years, sending a very strong message that the Union will survive, and it will survive right here in Washington, D.C. All right, no war of 1812, no British fire is going to stop them. Now, in this building, you got a thing that's called the National Statuary Hall Collection, where they had every state donate 2 statues of something they considered important. But what's going to happen is that room is going to, it's going to be too small. And once all the states start giving these statues, they're going to overflow that room and they're going to go all over the Capitol. So if you walk through that Capitol building, you're going to see statues all over the place. All right. On top, speaking of statues, on top right there, right? That is the Statue of Freedom. It's 19.6 feet tall, right? And it's a bronze statue. It weighs multiple tons, and it's basically armed liberty. If you get a nice close look at that, you can see it's liberty, and liberty ain't messing around. Liberty is armed and ready to go. All right? The rotunda. Now, that's where the national ceremonial space is. That's where they have a whole bunch of famous paintings of the events of this country. That's where they have like funerals for like famous people. Okay. Now, eventually, the Civil War is going to come around, and when the Civil War comes around, Lincoln doesn't stop the construction. Okay. That dome, believe it or not, is cast iron dome. I know it looks like maybe stone, but it's a cast iron dome. In Lincoln, even though we've got no money, right? We're trying to win this war. It's not going wonderful. Lincoln keeps working on that dome to send the message that the Union is strong and we're not going to stop for anything. All right. Now this Capitol, it's survived a bunch of things over the years, but recently, on January 6, 2001, there was a new kind of thing that had to survive. There was a break in the protocol of the peaceful transition of power. Now it's not like this hadn't like almost happened before. When Adams and Jefferson's were huge political rivals, even enemies, right? And people wondered, Jefferson wondered if he was going to have to use violence to be able to take the White House, which was rightfully his after winning the election. But it didn't happen because Adams stepped down peacefully, left, and just gave the White House to Jefferson. Now, when Trump didn't win the election, Trump was refusing to leave. And his people, he says he didn't do it, but it was his people did it without him having anything to do with it. But his people stormed the Capitol building and caused a lot of destruction in the Capitol building to try to stop the count for Joe Biden being president. For us people that are pretty familiar with modern history, this was absolutely shocking. For people that have no history for a long, long time, we all said, well, we knew that this almost happened before. We knew this could happen someday. It's pretty sad that it did happen on January 6, 2021. It wasn't crazy violent, but it was violent. People got hurt, people got killed. All right. The thing about our government is a lot of the norms are just norms. It's like not written law that you have to do this, you have to do that, right? A lot of it is just norms. And one of the norms was a peaceful transfer of power. Okay, so now, when you look at this is the people's house. Okay, in the old days, when this was first created, the House of Representatives had one representative for every 30,000 people. Okay, this is the people's house. Today, it's got one representative for about every 900,000. That representative of the people's house isn't representing the people the way that person's supposed to be representing the people, okay? Now, they say eventually, because the country kept growing and growing and growing and there wasn't space here in the Capitol building, that they had to up the numbers and up the numbers and up the numbers. They couldn't stay at one representative for every 30,000. Well, I say give them space somewhere else. Have them communicate Zoom if they have to, right? One representative for every 30,000 people back then versus one representative for every 900,000 people today. That's not the people's house. That person can't possibly represent their people. Something needs to be done about that, all right? After all, this is a representative democracy, right? Where we have checks and balances, right? We got to do something about that. Okay, now when I do my Travel in Time with Dan show, I like to mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, right? Travel, you can't go wrong. By traveling down here to Washington, D.C., this place is absolutely amazing. Seeing the Capitol up close would be absolutely amazing. History, I've already given you some of that. So what's the leadership here? Well, the leadership is strong institutions matter more than any one individual. After all, this is the people's house, right? The president's the executive right here, but Congress is the people's house, right? So strong institutions matter more than any one individual. And great leaders build systems that outlast themselves. Everybody, thank you for spending time with me today on the Travel in Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with leadership and with history, and of course me, Dan. Be back real soon with another great episode somewhere else. Till then, take care and have a wonderful day.